From Studio 3 at Buzz TV, it's The Horse's Mouth with Tom McManus.
All right, welcome into The Horse's Mouth here at Tommy Max, of course, at my bar where everybody's welcome. But this time around, he's always here because he's my buddy, and we talk ball each and every week about our lovely and beloved Jaguars. Let's get into it with Coach Dave Campo. Coach, welcome back, my man.
Thank you, Tom. I'm good. Thank you.
Feels like Groundhog Day, man. I'm sick and tired of talking about this team losing and game after game, making the same mistakes, not being physical. Yeah. I mean, is there an end in sight, in your opinion? What are you thinking?
Well, there's always an end in sight in this league. You know that.
Well,
I mean, it's the parity part of it is there, from the standpoint that, any given, and you talk about any given Sunday, well, it's the truth. I mean, you can go and look really bad in one ball game and really, get the next one done. The problem is that I'm not sure this team is, the way they're configured right now, can get that done. Right. That's the concern going forward.
Absolutely. Well, I guess for a lot of Jag fans, they were hoping change was coming. I heard you on 1010XL recently saying you're not surprised that Shad Khan didn't make a move as of yet.
Right.
You're not surprised at all?
I'm not surprised from the standpoint that from experience, watching the league, owners are very reluctant to make changes during the season.
Yep.
If it's earlier, maybe it spurs on some guys to get going.
Right.
But with this being game number, week
13,
13 coming up,
12,
it's not going to change the narrative there.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, everybody says, well, you can get started on the next move.
Yeah.
I'm a firm person to explain that because Jerry Jones, my last year as a head coach, Jerry Jones, he kept me till the end of the year, but in reality, he was working the phones before the end. So to me, I don't think at this particular time, when you make the decision, okay, we're getting rid of this guy and that guy, you're basically saying it's over. And the way I characterize it is, there's no guarantees that they can't win 5 straight now.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No, right.
But it's possible. And in the owner's mind, that keeps people in the stands. When the people stop coming to the stands, that's when you have a problem.
Yeah. It's interesting. You look at Detroit and just the way they have been built. Brad Holmes, the GM, and Dan Campbell, the head coach. They fired their head coach and GM in 2020 with 5 games to go.
Right.
And then took that rest of the year to evaluate and see what they were going to do.
Right.
I will say this to the players: you better be on notice too.
Well, they're on notice right now.
Fire the coach, you're next.
Yeah.
If you don't have a big contract, and even if you do, they may figure out a way. But you're on the chopping block next. So it's never a good thing when someone gets fired.
Right.
It's just not.
Right.
Head coach.
Right.
Especially during the year. After the season, you got time to recoup. You get time, but during the season, I don't know. I think it's just for the fans.
Yes.
For them, their ego or whatever it is, which is fine. They're allowed. They're fans. But they got to do what's right for the organization. I would have personally, and I know this is a little harsh and extreme, I would have at least told Doug, if I was the owner, to fire the D coordinator and the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's working. And I don't know Ryan Nielsen, coach.
Right.
But whatever he's doing, the rotating, I don't know why you don't have your best players out there all the time.
Yeah, there's no question there.
There's coverage issues. There's mental. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's working. I heard you with Joe. Look, their defense was better last year and 2 years ago with the personnel. So that I could have seen happen. And for the record, just so everybody knows, I don't want anyone to get fired. I've been cut before.
Right.
It's not fun. You know what I mean? You're losing a job. It's your livelihood.
And the assistant coaches are the ones that suffer the most.
They do.
Because you got families and those guys don't have guarantees and they don't have the same money that the head coach has. But, going along with you played the game. You know how important, and I'm with you 100% from the standpoint of all this rotation stuff. Yep. That's okay in training camp, to try to find out what guys. But you know how important it was for you to know what this guy was going to do next to you, and what this linebacker was doing, how he operated within the scheme of things. Communication and everything, it just doesn't work.
Right.
You know, when you're in a situation where you're not, that communication and continuity and all that, I don't know how they expect to get it any better, you know, when they don't do that.
I see a lot of like tunnel vision from guys.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
they're focused on their guy. Like the rub routes. Like, come
Yeah.
on. Okay. Listen, it's easier said than done.
Right.
But as a linebacker, you got to have peripheral. So I'm looking at you. I can see my side.
Right.
I can see someone coming down to try to block me. I can't
Right.
have tunnel vision where I have these blinders on and you can't see it. Because if someone rubs me, I got to do what? I either go underneath or I got to go around.
Right.
Or we pass it off because we communicated prior to the snap that, hey,
Correct.
watch the rub. If they rub, we'll switch. Okay, great, no problem.
Right.
They don't do any of that.
Right.
You don't see any And by the way, not just this year.
Oh.
Last year was that way too. No communication and
Right.
coverage and man-to-man. It doesn't seem, and it's not, Coach. You're a secondary coach to begin with, defensive coach to begin with.
Yep.
Of course, head coach. But look, coverage is it's dynamic. It can be, but it's not like you can't figure it out.
Communication is the key.
Right.
As long as you know, you've been taught how to handle situations, you should be able to handle situations.
Right.
And to me, you know, I've seen it with the bunch routes, you know, where everybody's trying to pick guys and all that stuff. You know, we haven't played those well in 3 years.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. I think sometimes, and this is just my opinion, I don't know if everybody agrees, but sometimes with these PowerPoint things that they use where the coach throws it up, okay, we're playing cover 2, here's what this guy does, here's what this guy does, and these guys are supposed to know. The way I coached, a lot of times I wouldn't get through when I was putting a coverage in.
Yep.
There were 4 or 5 things that I was going to cover with every coverage because they're unusual.
Right.
A boot, a bunch,
Right.
a draw,
Right.
a screen.
Right.
Those things are going to be taught
Yep.
to where everybody knows exactly what they're going to do. Those are things that you have to do.
Ingrained.
And it was on the board, right?
Right.
Not a PowerPoint.
No, right.
And a lot of times I would actually not get through an entire install that particular day because I was so intricate on what everybody's supposed to do and how they're going to handle it. And then I would coach, if something happened on the field that we hadn't covered, I'd coach it off the film.
Yep. Right.
That's how I did it.
No, right.
I think coaches today are a little bit too much. Just throw it up on the board and have them figure it out. You can't do that.
Well,
it just
you
doesn't
can't,
happen.
like I said before, like I think Doug says, hey, it works on paper, it should work on
that's
the field.
kind of what I'm talking
but
about.
you're forgetting everything in between, like the human error and the human element and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
All right, let's talk Trevor real quick. Because I'm seeing and hearing some things now. I don't know if they're true. I don't know if you've heard them or not. But before I say anything about that, look, I strongly believe we can win a Super Bowl with Trevor Lawrence. There's no doubt. We're not 2-9 because of Trevor Lawrence. We're 2-9 because our defense is terrible. He did contribute to it. He's part of the problem. Everyone's like, he's not, but he's part of the problem. Whatever part, whatever. Okay?
Yes.
But I want to ask you this question because I keep hearing it. Mostly it's from fans. Can a coaching staff ruin a quarterback? Like, can they ruin Trevor? How can they now not protecting him? I could say could ruin him because he, you know. But they've, even though we don't like what they've done up front, he wasn't getting killed in the pocket. He got hurt running, out, scrambling out in the open water. You know what I mean? So I wasn't concerned about his health inside the pocket, because he's been pretty clean. But other than that, can a coaching staff or a regime or play calling screw up the QB?
I believe that it's not easy to do that because a quarterback, a lot of it is natural ability. To give an example, and it's a different position, I didn't coach Deion Sanders very much. I just made sure he understood what we were in, what his responsibility was, and that's it. He was one of the worst technique players in football.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
no kidding.
But he was so athletic.
So you gifted
but you can screw him up by having him do too much stuff. With a quarterback, it's kind of the same thing from the standpoint that what he does, find out what he does the best and do it. Don't have him do stuff that he's not the best at.
I agree.
And that to me is, and I don't want to say the coaches, I think he has some deficiencies in some areas, just like
I do too.
We all do.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think, though, that I've said this before. We had Warren Moon on one of the radio shows I'm on, and Warren said, the quarterback position, which we all know is one of probably the most important position in any team sport anywhere. But it's also the most reliant. So I always looked at it like, okay, this quarterback can do these things. If he's a great quarterback, you don't need as much over here. If he's an average quarterback, you need a little bit more over here. If he's a bad quarterback, you better have a lot over here because you got to win special teams and one of the other two, either defense or offense. So to me, I think in his case, I thought last year that might be there were too many cooks in the kitchen. This year, you got the same situation. You got 3 or 4 guys that have got the quarterback's ear. You got the coordinator. You got McCoy. You got now
and
last
Bob
year.
Cooter left. He was here.
Last year they had one other guy. So that maybe they cut it down a little bit, but I don't know.
I just think why did he need 4?
You don't.
Not need, but maybe there was a reason for that.
You don't.
But maybe Doug felt there was a reason.
Listen, in your day. There was a quarterback coach, a running back coach. Today, there's 15 coaches.
Passing game coordinator, running game, all that stuff.
I'm old school.
Let's wrap up with this. When I saw Doug Peterson at his press conference, I watched it live from the house. He looked broken to me. He looked, and even said, and look, you got to realize too. I know a lot of fans. Just every word they're on his ass. Like you're just answering the question. And look, I don't agree with what he says. So, like I don't think he should say like when he said they're tired. We're tired. No. Like you should never say that publicly because guess what? At 9-2, you're tired. You're beat up, and so everybody is. So that's like an excuse. I didn't like that's not who we were. Well, you know what? That is who you are
there for sure.
At least for that game, that is definitely who you are because you showed it on the field. But and then he makes the comment like they're probably sick of me and I'm a little bit sick. Not sick, but need time apart. It just seems like it's broken. Like there's something. Now, hopefully the bye gets started coming up. The bye gets, rejuvenation, and we get it back together and we finish. I want them to finish strong. There's no tanking. There's no sitting the quarterback. Play the guys that are healthy.
We've been there.
Go.
That's fan talk.
That's fan talk.
Absolutely. But I will say this. I think Doug was the right hire.
I agree.
Under the circumstances of the way the season ended with prior to him getting here. Okay. To me, it bothers me. It has bothered me for a number of games of his demeanor after games. And the one thing I would say is this: we all make mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes as a head coach. I made decisions that were not good. If somebody asked me a question, I never wanted to ever let anybody see me sweat. Okay? So if I made a mistake, I would say, look, okay, I made the decision. As it turns out, it was a bad decision. But here's why I made that decision.
Guess who did that? Dan Campo. Remember, he fired his offensive coordinator, promoted the tight end. Now everybody wants this guy.
Absolutely. So to me, it just looks to me like he's a little bit, he takes a long time to answer some questions, which he didn't at first. It's the pressure that's getting to him a little bit, and he's getting frustrated, and he's making some statements that.
Well, I'll tell you what would frustrate the heck out of me if I'm Doug Peterson. My best defensive front is Josh Hines-Allen at left defensive end, Eric Armstead at left defensive tackle, whoever at the right defensive tackle, and Trayvon Walker. And they don't leave the field unless they need a spell.
Absolutely.
And if I'm the head coach, I'm so upset that we can't have that.
Absolutely.
And there's something going on with the GM and Eric. And Eric came out and was like, no, I'm an end. They recruited me to be an end. You're like, this is crazy. You're better at a defensive tackle. You're built. You got a built-in swim move. You're 6'8". Nobody can block you.
Correct.
You see it on the field. But if you're Doug, you're sitting there going, why can't you play it? Well, he wants to play in. and the GM said he could play in.
Absolutely.
You know, Coach, when that shit goes on, stuff goes on, that's oil and water, man. That don't mix.
I just answered a question.
Like
I just answered a question that was put into on the radio.
Yeah.
That when you get the situation where a GM, and we don't know if this is a case, but I think it's a case, where a player says, okay, I want to be a defensive end, but I've been a defensive tackle. Well, you can do that.
Yeah.
So you say that so you can get him here.
Right.
That's a player holding the organization hostage.
Hostage, right.
And so I think there's a little bit of that involved because it's 3-1 his pressures inside as compared to outside. So obviously I don't know if that's the total case.
Here's an incentive, Eric. Get a sack from the defensive tackle position, and I'll give you 5 reps outside.
There you go. I like that.
We'll make a little deal.
You and I are on the same
We'll make a little
page.
deal. Get him to do both. He's got to play inside. So there is some. My point of bringing that up, when you have that inside, not on the same page, GM and head coach, it's hard to win in the league.
No question. You can't win that way.
You can't win.
Yep.
All right, Coach. Well, we got a bye week this Sunday, so good. I hope they get rested.
Yep.
Because they're all tired. We're all tired.
Yeah.
For the record, you and I mean, we like talking ball.
Yeah.
We like talking winning football more than losing football.
No question.
All right, my man. Always a
Yes,
pleasure,
sir.
Coach.
All
Always
right,
a pleasure
Tom.
with Coach
You bet.
Campo here at the bar each and every week talking about our beloved Jags, and hopefully they can get off the schneid and turn things around, at least finish strong so we can look forward to maybe a very fruitful 2025 season. Until next time, stay safe out there and be cool. We'll see you right here on the Horses Bar.
Cheers.